This week's guest is going to share his ongoing torment for being dragged from one reality to the next and back again without any warning.
I'm James and come from Margate, and I work as an insurance advisor. So what I'm going to tell you about is my experience moving from one reality to another, which happens randomly here and there. It's very disorientating, very confusing sometimes, and you can sometimes find yourself in a completely different place. But when the switch happens, sometimes it will be instantaneous, like snapping a finger. Suddenly I will find myself either in the same position with different people or different things around me and things like that. If it is to a different location altogether, it is what I refer to as a slow shift. Then I will find myself in a completely different location. Sometimes it will be seconds, sometimes minutes to hours, and very, very occasionally days. First time I can remember, I would have been about 5 or 6 years old. I was at school when I was a kid, just leaving, and I found myself somewhere else, completely different physical place. It lasted literally just a matter of minutes. I didn't really know what to do. It was panic stations, basically. I was just leaving my school and going to be meeting my grandparents who were picking me up outside. As I stepped through the door, I was in a different school and different children around me, and my grandparents were standing there. It was very, very confusing. So I met them at their school gate and was rather disturbed. My brother came out the same school. I didn't know whether or not to ask him because I thought something was wrong with me. We were walking up the road as we turned around the corner and everything went a little bit hazy. Then I was back where I would normally have been. No one noticed at all. The most often it's happened in one period of time was my first trip, which was a hiking trip to Cranbrook when I was a teenager doing the Duke of Edinburgh's award. It was shortly after I'd recovered from a severe head injury. There was a few blips, basically. At one point I found myself, I was standing in the woods for a photo. Next thing I was standing in the middle of a street with the same group I was with for the Duke of Edinburgh's award, completely somewhere else. Then shortly after that, I found myself back in the woods. A little while later, we were hiking across a field. I found myself in a different one. Some of those, what I refer to as a slow shift. That's where other people can notice and see. They can see like a different, how can I describe it? Almost becoming like almost see-through, and then swapping with another version of me from one of these other places. Sometimes people have noticed this around me. I'll be out on another hike I went on a few years ago with a friend of mine, and this was also in Cranbrook, the Cranbrook to Goldhurst hike. He asked if I'd changed t-shirts, asked why he thought I got a different backpack a couple of times throughout the hike. One of the photos, you can see basically two of these sort of dimensions or realities, whatever you want to call them. You can see two of them in one, where it's me in the same picture in two completely different poses. It looks like a reflection in water, but it's not. It's two versions. When going through the photo and examining it, like with double exposures, you get what's called a join line between the two photos. There isn't. Both of them just meld into one. One of the other photos, the person I was taking a photo of, is different in two sort of versions of this in one picture, with a tractor that I don't ever remember having actually been there. And if there was actually a tractor driving through this field, my friend on that hiking trip would not have been hiking across it right in front of it. There's another photo which is the one in the woods where I was doing what I refer to as a slow shift, and you can actually see right through me. You can see the light on the ground behind me, through me. You can see the outline of the fence and things like that. And that was what we call a slow shift. That's where I found myself. 1 minute I'm standing in the woods for a photo, mucking around as you do when you're a teenager, and then the next thing I'm standing in the middle of the road and hiking. When I switch with another version, things are very different. For example, trying to unlock my mobile phone. My thumbprint won't work. The others, they have different fingerprints and thumbprints to me. Some of us look slightly different. We don't all have the same middle name. We have different scars, different tattoos, and things like that. So it can sometimes be quite noticeable. If I've left my phone down somewhere and I go and pick it up when I've done one of these switches, my thumbprint won't work to unlock it. There are some slight differences with some of the other places. One of them is very, very different to here. There's a bit of a different history, and it's a little bit less safe. I think is the best way to describe it, that one. There are 16 versions that I know of. Me and the other versions of me, we do actually communicate using notebooks. So we will write down things, like if we change a passcode on a phone, for example, or a password, we'll put that in the notebooks, which we hide in different locations that we know of, communicate that way. I have actually met another version, which happened in my house. I was literally just getting up, getting ready to go to bed, and suddenly there was a guy standing right in front of me at the doorway, so I kind of reacted and thought he was a burglar, and I hit him. And it turned out it was another version of me from one of these. He looked very, very shocked, because I think as far as he was concerned, he didn't actually realise he'd switched, and was just walking into the living room just as I was walking out of the living room, and suddenly there I was, and he looked more shocked, and I was a little bit more shocked because I hadn't heard anything. So when I hit him, he sort of looked very, very stunned, and then shocked, and then he shifted. Some of them I can tell, most of them it's very difficult. They're all very, very similar. So number 6 is a very different history. Something happened during the Cold War and leaving the early 80s. It seems that some sort of version of World War III broke out. Rules, laws are very, very different. It can be rather dangerous. It really can. There are groups and factions and things like that still, anti-government groups and things like that. First time I was out driving, this was in the Medway towns. I was driving down the street that I know very, very well. It looked very different. There was a few burnt out cars and a roadblock, a military roadblock. And I was stopped by armed military, wanted to check my driving license, check my details and things like that. That was rather unnerving. Whatever I'm holding connected to, that includes cars. So when I switch, if I'm in a car, then the car will come with me, plus whatever is in it. If I'm walking down the street, or if I'm at home, whatever it is that I'm wearing or holding in my hands, that will switch and come with me. If I'm with people and they're in the car, then obviously they will be coming with it as well. A friend that was on a motorcycle with me, and we were out riding, and we did actually get stopped in number 6 by a roadblock. He was rather terrified, and I didn't really know how to explain it to him. So as far as he was concerned, he thought that they were just doing some sort of strange military operation in the area. He didn't really know what to do or how to react, because his details obviously didn't match up either when they were checking on their computer. So that could have gone very, very badly. He was rather terrified. I didn't explain it to him at all. I didn't really know how to put it into words for him that he would understand. He is a very, how to put it, devout atheist, and won't believe in anything at all, even if you held something up in front of his face. He grew up in Ireland, and he knew a little bit about these sort of military roadblocks and things like that he had seen while he was growing up over there, and never expected to see anything like that over in this country at all. He was rather shocked by it, and was even more shocked when his details didn't match up. When we got a little bit further up the road on the motorcycle to pull over somewhere, and we were back normal, and I just rode off, and he was a little bit worried we were going to be shot at, even though we were back to here. That other version lives at a different address. Their middle name is different, and they do look a bit different to me. They have a much bigger beard down here and things like that. Some of them do look a little bit different. I think the best way to describe it is we look more sort of like brothers. Some of them aren't my height and build. They're a little bit shorter, a little bit slim built. I'm guessing that might have been something to do with their upbringing. One particular one that I've been communicating with a bit more, the one I do tend to switch with more often. There are certain authors and writers that aren't in that particular one. So we are swapping books, because technically those authors aren't really there. They can then release those books and as their own, really, which should be quite useful. I'm still waiting, still carrying a particular copy of a book around with me, waiting to switch over. If that goes well and gets picked up, then maybe I'd switch some money around as well, which would be even more useful, because currency is almost identical in most of them. We were driving back from Cranbrook from that hike. I've been in the car with my daughter, and we've come around a roundabout and saw us coming back round in the opposite direction. That was one very interesting experience. it was one of those things where you weren't really sure if it was a case of going from one reality to another, or if it was a time slip, or what it was. One that I really can remember, which was when I was a kid. I was 8 years old. I went to a kids park and started talking to another kid that was sat on the swing next to me, who had the same name as me. We were both born in the same place, and we had the same first name. And we got on really, really well. And I remember he had a pair of sunglasses on that I really, really liked. About a year later, I got myself a pair of those sunglasses, and I went back to the park and met a kid that was a year younger than me. Same name, came from the same place, and had a lot of things in common. He really liked my sunglasses. So that was the first sort of time slip that I can remember. I'm not really sure how it worked, whether one went forward or one went back, I don't know. I've spoken with other paranormal investigator groups. One of them brought along a photography expert to have a look at some of the photos, and he was rather baffled by those. He's seen a lot of various different pictures, and the ones that I showed him, he couldn't really explain at all. I have run through various different tests with other paranormal investigators, with things like EMF and ELF readers and things like that, see if there's any sort of frequency they can pick up. There's nothing in particular. I have a lot of various different theories, one of which there was nuclear testing in the Caribbean when I was born there. Because I was born in the Caribbean in 1982, and they were doing nuclear testing there. That's one theory. I don't know if it is a very good one, but it's the only one I've really got. To be perfectly honest though, I think it does actually happen to everybody. Just some people it happens more than others. For example, I've heard of things like the Mandela effect, where somebody will watch something in a movie and think, well, hang on, I've seen this movie a million times before and I don't ever remember that bit. The same with certain songs and things like that. Places where people remember things, and then when they go back, they're different. I think it happens to everybody, but I think some people it happens to more, or some people tend to notice a little bit more. An example, one that I can think of, like when you listen to the song by Queen, We Are the Champions. If you ask anybody what the last line of that song is, and just about everybody will answer, "Of the World," and it's not, never has been. Yet everybody remembers it being that. Other examples, there was a famous boxer I remember seeing in the news that he had passed away, and was quite sad about it. When we were driving back, we bumped into him at a petrol station and got a photo and an autograph from him as well. My fiancée, when she was in work a couple of days later, and she was talking to one of her friends from work, and said to her friend, "Oh yeah, we bumped into this person, this particular boxer." And her friend's response was, "Oh, I thought he died a few years ago. I remember it on the news." So these are examples of the Mandela effect. They call it the Mandela effect because a lot of people remember hearing about Nelson Mandela passing away whilst he was still in prison, and he really, really didn't. I did speak to somebody with another paranormal investigation group who had another theory about I'm not really sure if I subscribe to this one, but his theory was alien spacecraft using various different types of propulsion drive, and that can set things off where people will find themselves slipping into other various different realities. That's one of the ones that wanted to run all kinds of tests with the EMF readers, the ELF readers and things like that. Type of camera that picks up people's auras, which he said mine looked a little bit unusual to him, which is very interesting considering he's a paranormal investigator. But it wasn't really one that I subscribed to about it being alien spacecraft causing it. The last time I physically remember it was about 4 days ago. It would have been Tuesday last week. Found myself in my home, same as before. Everything was slightly different layout and things like that. And I was in the house on my own as opposed to in the house with my fiancée. So I left him a note in one of the notebooks. I wouldn't be worried about any of them switching and being around my daughter. They have children as well. Unfortunately, one of them is still married to my ex-wife though. I feel really bad for him. But apart from that, I can't actually remember the last time I actually switched there, but I do remember sort of walking out the house and going for a long walk around the countryside until switching back. Luckily, that one only lasted about an hour or so. I've spoken to a few people who have claimed to have had similar experiences. Two of those I think were, to be honest, I think they were making it up. One of them in particular, I think that this particular person had experienced it and noticed it, and it was happening relatively frequently, but was rather terrified of it and didn't really understand it very much. I would like it to stop altogether, but I don't really know how to. That's why I've reached out to other paranormal investigator groups to try and find if there are other people that have experienced this or gone through this or know about it. Because I think, as I was saying about the Mandela effect, I think everybody does experience it, but not as many people will notice it, or it doesn't happen as frequently.